If your VA claim recently moved back in status, that does not mean an automatic denial. Most of the time, it means the VA found something that needs more development before they can issue a final decision. It could be an exam clarification, a deferred condition, a missing record, or a piece of evidence that needs another look. So before you panic, upload random documents, or call the VA 5 times, I want you to understand what that movement actually means. In this video, I'm going to show you why VA claims move backward, what stage 5 really means, what's happening behind the tracker, and when you should act versus when you should leave the claim alone. Welcome back, y'all. I'm Jacob with VetClaims.ai. If you've been with us since day one, we see you and we appreciate you. Now let's get into what's actually happening behind the tracker. Here's the first thing you need to know. The tracker you see on va.gov is a simplified version of what's happening behind the scenes. The public tracker may show a clean step-by-step process, but behind the scenes, the claim can move between evidence gathering, evidence review, rating, and decision preparation, depending on what the VA still needs. That's where a lot of panic starts. A veteran sees stage 5, thinks, okay, they're deciding my claim. And then a week later, it drops back to stage 3. The first thought is usually, did I mess something up? Is this about to get denied? Or why would it go backward if everything was okay? But that backward movement usually does not mean the VA is killing the claim. It usually means the file hit a gap. If you used our services to file, know that nothing is wrong and it's in the VA's hands now. So let's build the battle map. The VA disability claim process officially moves through 8 stages. One quick note before we go walk through them, depending on your claim type or the version of the tracker you're looking at, your screen may show a condensed view with fewer steps. va.gov uses an 8-step framework specifically for disability compensation claims, and that's the framework we're using here. So if your screen looks a little different, the underlying process is still the same. Here are all 8. Stage 1 is claim received. This is the timestamp. The VA is saying, we received your claim, it's in the system. Nothing has really been reviewed yet. This is mainly the starting point, and it helps establish the date tied to the claim. Stage 2 is initial review. This is where the VA checks basic information. They're looking at whether the claim has the information they need to begin processing it. Name, social security number, claim type, basic eligibility information, that kind of thing. But the most common one would be your signature. Don't forget to sign your 526 or your 995. If something basic is missing, they may contact you. If it clears that first check, it moves forward. Stage 3 is evidence gathering. This is where a lot of claims spend the most time, and the VA itself describes this as usually the longest step in the entire process. The VA may be gathering service treatment records, VA medical records, private medical records you authorize them to request, lay evidence, and anything else needed to decide the claim. This is also where the VA may schedule C&P exams. And this stage matters because if the VA needs more evidence later, or if you submit new evidence later, the claim can come back for this stage for review. This is not automatically a bad sign, it is part of how the process works. Stage 4 is evidence review. This is where the VA looks at the evidence that has been gathered and checks whether the file is ready for decision. If something is still missing, unclear, or incomplete, the claim goes back to stage 3. If the file looks ready, it can move forward to rating. Stage 5. This is a stage that causes the most stress and definitely the most anxiety. This is where a VA rater is reviewing the file and deciding the claim based on the evidence, the rating criteria, and the facts in the record. I know if you're at stage 5, you're sitting there just pressing refresh over and over again, just waiting for the rater to make a decision, and you're like, why aren't they making a decision? But we will get to it in a minute because obviously this is the place that most veterans absolutely freak out. Stage 6 is preparing the decision letter. At this point, the decision is being turned into the official letter. That letter may include the rating decision, payment information, effective date information, and the explanation for how the VA reached the decision. Stage 7 is the final review. This is a final quality control step. A senior reviewer is looking over the claim and decision letter before it is released. Then stage 8 is claim decided. This is when the decision is available, you will get an email and you will be able to view it in va.gov. But the VA will always send you a physical paper copy in the mail. When that decision arrives, read it carefully, check the effective date, check the back pay calculation, and read the reasons for the decision. Even if a condition is denied, that letter is telling you what the VA believed was missing. That matters for your next step. So now you've got the map, but the map alone doesn't answer the question that brought you here. Every single claim is going to be different, but If you have your claim straight and all your ducks in a row and all the evidence gathered and submitted, it will take less time, because if you make the decision easy to make, the VA doesn't really have a choice to deny you. If you give them all the evidence and put it right in front of their face, the odds are going to be way better in your favor. Think of your claim like a rubber band. It stretches forward as evidence gets gathered, reviewed, and prepared for rating. But if the rater gets into the file and finds a gap, that claim can snap back at an earlier stage. So that specific issue can be developed. That gap could be a few different things. Maybe the C&P exam report did not answer a question that the rater needed answered. Maybe a medical opinion was present, but it did not address the right issue clearly enough. Or maybe one condition can be decided, but another condition has to be deferred because it needs more development. Maybe a private medical record was referenced, but never actually received. Maybe new evidence came in after the file had already moved forward, and now the VA has to review it before deciding. This is why a claim can go from stage 5 back to stage 3. It does not automatically mean you did something wrong. It does not automatically mean denial. It usually means the VA is trying to close a gap before issuing the final decision. That distinction matters, because if you misunderstand that movement, you may start doing things that slow the claim down even more. Here's where a lot of veterans accidentally create more delay. They see the claim move backward, panic, and start uploading anything they can find. Old medical records, random screenshots, a new personal statement, duplicate copies of documents already submitted. And I get why that happens. You're trying to help your claim. But if your claim was already in the later stages, new evidence can send the file back to evidence gathering, because now the VA has to review what you just added. Sometimes that evidence is important and should be submitted, but sometimes it just restarts review without actually improving the claim. So the question is not, can I upload something? The question is, did the VA ask me for something? Or do I have specific evidence that directly addresses a real gap in the claim? That is the difference between responding strategically and panic uploading. Now let's talk about stage 5, rating. Because stage 5 is where the tracker gets quiet. The anxiety gets loud, and veterans start assuming silence means something bad. It usually doesn't. This is where a rating veteran service representative, the VA rater, reviews your file and makes a decision on the conditions in the claim. Not a basic intake check, not just pulling records. This is where the file is being evaluated against the evidence and the rating criteria. But here's the first thing you need to understand about stage 5. In many cases, some of the time you spend waiting in stage 5 may simply be queue time before the file lands on a rater's desk. But from the outside, there's no way to know for certain whether the file is sitting in a queue, being actively reviewed, or being sent back for more development. None of that is visible on the tracker. That distinction matters because a lot of veterans interpret silence as a bad sign. But the length of time in stage 5 does not predict the outcome. Some claims sit there for months and get approved. Some claims move quickly and still get denied. The timeline and the outcome are not connected the way veterans assume they are. Once the rater does pick up the file, the work is not simple. They're looking at the evidence for each claim condition, they're reviewing medical records, C&P exam findings, service records, lay evidence, private treatment notes, and any other relevant documents in the file. For every condition, they have to determine whether the evidence supports service connection, what rating level applies, and what effective date should be used if benefits are granted. That takes time, especially when a claim includes multiple conditions. And no two veterans' files look the same. Two veterans can both claim PTSD, migraines, back pain, or sleep apnea, and the evidence can look completely different. Different symptoms, different severity, different frequency, different functional impact, different medical history, different service history. That rater has to work through the evidence that is actually in the file. This is why preparation matters before the claim ever reaches this stage. Your claim should clearly show what condition you are claiming, what happened in service, or what service-connected condition may have caused or aggravated it. That medical evidence supports it, how severe it is, how often it affects you, how it impacts your work, your daily life, your family, your sleep, your movement, your concentration, or whatever area of life the condition affects. This is what a well-prepared claim does. If that story is scattered across a pile of disconnected documents, the rater may still review the file, but unclear evidence can make the decision harder. That is not a stage 5 problem, that is a preparation problem that shows up in stage 5. And that's why claims sometimes snap back from stage 5 to stage 3. So what should you actually do when this happens? This is the part that matters most, because sometimes the right move is to act fast, and sometimes the right move is to stop touching the file. You should act if the VA sends you a specific request. That could be a development letter, a request for private medical records, a request for a release form, a notice about a scheduled C&P exam, a request for clarification, or any written request telling you exactly what they need. If the VA asks you for something, do not ignore it. Respond as clearly and quickly as you can. You should also act if you discover a specific material problem that directly affects the claim. For example, if you realize a key private medical record was never submitted and that record directly supports the condition being decided, that may be worth submitting. But the key word is specific. Now here's the harder part. If your claim is in stage 5 and the VA has not asked you for anything, most of the time, your job is to leave it alone. I know that is hard to hear. The file is in the VA's hands. If you submit new evidence at the wrong time, it can pull the claim back into evidence review, and that may be necessary in some cases, but if the evidence does not add anything important, you may have just created a delay without improving the claim. So don't touch the file just because you're anxious. Check for official requests. Watch for exam notices. Read any letters carefully. A claim moving backward is not automatically a problem. Ignoring a real request from the VA is a problem. That's the difference. Now let's talk about timing. VA's published claim processing data changes monthly, so this should always be verified against va.gov. As of va.gov's April 2026 update, the average time to complete disability-related claims was listed at 72.3 days. That is an average, not a promise, and the VA updates these numbers over time, so always check the current VA page before you judge your own claim timeline. If you are outside that window, it still does not automatically mean something is wrong. It may just mean the claim is more complex, evidence is still being gathered, or the file moved backward because something needed another look. That is frustrating, but it is not automatically a sign of denial. So let's pull all of this together. Status changes are nothing to cause panic. They are part of the process. If your claim is already in the VA's hands and you feel good about the evidence you submitted, hold the line. You did the work, let the process run. But if you are still in the preparation phase, or you're realizing your evidence is scattered, unclear, or not telling the full story, that is where vetclaims.ai can help. Veterans have filed stronger, better organized claims and received expert level C&P preparation from our team at vetclaims.ai. Go to vetclaims.ai to learn how we can help you navigate this process and give your claim its best chance for success based on your true conditions and the evidence. And if this video helped you understand why your claim moved backward, hit subscribe, give it a like, and comment below with the VA claim topic you want us to cover next. Every like, share, comment, and new subscriber helps us reach more veterans who are trying to make sense of this process. We'll see you in the next one.